Well, okay. So, in the last class, we have seen that how Shivaji has inherited a legacy of anarchy. There were Deshmukhs and hereditary Watandar who were quite attached to their Watan, the land rights they have inherited for the collection of the taxes. And there used to be always many times there used to be infighting among themselves, and the area that Shivaji inherited from his father, that is Pune and surrounding area, there was a lot of anarchy. There used to be those Deshmukh used to many times change their loyalty, and Shivaji has tried to bring some order out of this chaotic condition, and that we have seen, and we have seen the Council of Eight Ministers, that is called Astapradhan Mandal. Asta means eight, Pradhan means ministers. So the Council of Eight Ministers called Astapradhan Mandal used to assist Shivaji. Now you know the origin of this Astapradhan Mandal. It's very difficult to trace out, but they were existing during the early phase of Shivaji. At least some of the posts out of those Ashtapradhan, like Peshwa and Muzumdar and Amatya. Because when Shivaji came to Pune as a teenager to look after the Jagir of his father, as on the behalf of his father, he had Peshwas and Muzumdar with him, who used to be, the main assistants to the ruler, as well as Muzumdar used to be the main accountants. But during the time of the coronation in 1674, this all Ashtapradhan system has put into the proper place. And who were those Ashtapradhan and what were their responsibilities that we have seen in the last class? If you have missed the class, you can go through the video link that I have posted on the class, posted in on the Google Classroom. I'll start sharing now. We will go ahead. Well, are you able to see me and PPT both?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Sir.
okay, fine, fine. So, this Ashtapradhan that we have discussed in the last class, apart from assisting the king in his work, they were also made responsible for particular area. According to one information that we got from the historical sources, the whole empire was divided. Shivaji's empire was, the territory over which the Marathas had domination usually divided into the two categories, that is called Swaraj and another was called Mughlai. Mughlai means, literally speaking, it was an area under the Mughal on which the Marathas did not had a proper control, but they will raid that area, collect the chauth, that is tax, and then come back. But then, apart from that, the proper area on which Shivaji had a proper control, well established control, was called Swaraj. And this Swarajya was divided into the three broad categories, three broad, we can say, provinces. But there are, according to Chitnis Bakar, there were 14 provinces. But according to another information, these three can be called division, if not provinces. So, among these, the northern division, which included Baglan, Koi country, south of Surat, Konkan, north of Bombay, then Deccan Plateau, Desh, and Pune. All this was governed by Peshwa. So, the Peshwa, he will assist the king in the administration, as well as he was also responsible for this particular area. Then southern division in Maharashtra, that is south of Bombay, that is Konkan area, south of Bombay, Savantwadi, North Canara coast. This was controlled by Annaji Datto. And then South province, that is in the southern India, Vaitu, Koppal and Tungabhadra, that was controlled by Dattaji Panta. But these important people, the person who was responsible for that area, the provincial head, was called Sarkar Kun, or he was called Subedar also. So that we'll be discussing later on in somewhat detail. The number of councillor, see, let us go back to this Ashtapradhan Mandal. Now, according to the strict literary interpretation, it is a council of eight ministers. So, literally speaking, the number of councillors should be eight. But it was not always so. For example, during Shivaji's time itself, the post of Amatya, that is, it was as good as financial minister, was held by two brothers, Naru Nilkanta and Ramchandra Nilkanta. So those two brothers were jointly looking after that post. That means automatically the number has become nine, not eight. Then during the time of Sambhaji, this old guard, I mean the old minister who worked with Shivaji, many of them were unhappy with Sambhaji's way of handling the administration, his personal character as well. And they had conspired against Sambhaji. So Sambhaji dismissed some of them, and even some of the councillor, when it was found out that they were hatching conspiracy to take Sambhaji's life, they were killed by Sambhaji. So, this Ashtapradhan Mandal, it everything its functioning and its power, its dismissal, increasing the number of the strength, reducing the number of the strength of the council of minister. It was all depend on the will of the king. For example, during Sambhaji's time, we find that he created a post called Chandogomatya. Chandogomatya post was already there during Shivaji's time. In fact, Nyadhish in the Ashtapradhan Mandal was given additional title of Chandogomatya, but he created a separate post and he gave this post Chandogomatya to his favorite North Indian Brahmin Kavi Kalash, who was disliked by the Maratha nobility. And this Chandogomatya post over a period of time became like a prime minister. Chandogomatya, that is Kavi Kalash, started looking after the complete administration. Sambhaji had a lot of trust on him, and all other ministers out of these eight council of ministers, they were sidelined. So we see immediately after Shivaji there was a change in the functioning of the Ashtapradhan Mandal. Similarly, under Rajaram, immediately after Shivaji, there was a political chaos. There was a kind of civil war, Sambhaji's side and Rajaram's side, and then Sambhaji continued to fight against the Mughal. He put a lot of trust on Kavi Kalash, so it had kind of disrupt the structure that Shivaji has tried to put in the place. And then we find that there was another reason, that is the invasion of Aurangzeb. And Aurangzeb invaded Maharashtra with a huge force, and Sambhaji was caught and killed, and then later on Rajaram became Chhatrapati. But situation was not as peaceful like Shivaji. Now there was a huge invasion of the Mughal. A large Maratha territory was already occupied by the Mughal, and in fact Rajaram has to escape from Maharashtra and take shelter at Jinji. We have already studied that. So during this situation, during this condition, Rajaram was also forced to make certain changes in the administrative structure. So he created two additional posts. One was Pratinidhi, and Prahlad Niraji was appointed as Pratinidhi. Pratinidhi means representative. So, if something suddenly happens to the king, or if king is not able to perform his duty for some reason, might be, captured by enemy, or might be engaged, might be, put under the siege by enemy. So in that case, there should be someone who will be able to look after the administration, and the person who started looking after the administration almost on the behalf of Rajaram, he became a main advisor of Rajaram, was Prahlad Niraji, and he went to Jinji with him. Then once Rajaram goes to Jinji, probably there might be slackening of the administration in Maharashtra, and slackening of the war effort in Maharashtra. So to avoid that, a new post was created called Hukumat Panna, and Ramchandra Panta Amatya was given that post of Hukumat Panna, and he became almost like a ruler. Nominally Rajaram was ahead, but virtually he controlled the whole of Maratha action. So we see that the changes that is coming in the Council of Minister. It was not always eight, and their duties and responsibility. It largely depended on the king. And then this Ashtapradhan Mandal, each of them were having huge responsibility, so they need staff to assist. So they were assisted by the different staff. For example, there used to be Diwan. Diwan was like an assistant to this Ashtapradhan Mandal. So each of the each of the important minister will have all these staff working under him. There will be a Muzumdar who will be an accountant. There will be Fadnis who will be like an auditor. Then there will be Sabnis, who is Draptadar, who will look after the office. Then there will be Karkhanis or commissary. That means he will procure whatever is required to run the administration smoothly. For example, Senapatis, Karkhanis will look after how the weapons that is required for fighting are to be procured, purchased, and kept given to the army. Zamadar was treasurer, so there will be a treasury for the each department. From the treasury, the administration of that department should run. So there should be a treasurer. There would be a potnis or cash keeper. Now you see, when we try to understand the administrative structure of that period, there are a lot of things which seems to be overlapping and bit of confusing. This name potnis, sometimes his nature of work, we understand that he must be a cash keeper, and sometimes we understand that potnis means a person who tastes the metal for its purity. So there will be a bit of overlapping and confusion, as in the beginning of this topic I told you that it's written by SN Sen. This is a book on administration system of the Marathas, and here SN Sen writes that one of the important challenge that we face while trying to understand the administrative structure during Shivaji's period is lack of reliable resources. Many of the resources were lost because immediately after Shivaji there was uncertainty in Maharashtra. A lot of infighting went on, and probably nobody had time to keep a proper record. Neither the records which were kept during Shivaji's period were preserved. A lot of things were burned and lost during the time of uncertainties and war. Well, now apart from this eight ministry having their own staff to assist them, there was another parallel, almost parallel office that was called secretariat. Secretariat, and the head of secretariat used to be Chitnis. Chitnis was like a secretary to the king. So, being a secretary to the king, he played a very important role. Balaji Auji was secretary of Shivaji's time, and he prepared all the royal letters, he prepared all the diplomatic correspondence, he drafted the royal orders, and then to assist this chitnis there used to be a person called Fadnis. So he was subordinate officer in the secretariat, but during Peshwa's time we find that this we will come across the person called Nana Fadnvis in the next semester when we'll be studying the further chapters on Maratha history. So this person became very important during the period of latter Peshwas. So we see that there was a not very well defined constitution as we have now. For example, we have a very well defined constitution now. Supreme Court judge cannot suddenly take over the charge of the country, or the army chief cannot suddenly take over the charge of the country. He cannot become the head. The head has to be elected head, prime minister. But that kind of structure was not prevalent during those period, and there was a bit of uncertainty. Lot of things were dependent on the individual personality. For example, Fadnvis, we see that he is a subordinate officer during Shivaji's time, during Sambhaji's and Rajaram time, but during Peshwa's time becoming a very prominent person. Peshwa, in fact, who was one among the Ashtapradhan, though among the Ashtapradhan he had a very important position, but he becoming a very supreme person during the period of Shahu after 1707. Well, then we come across Potnis. I have already referred to. He was responsible for the account of income and expenditure for the treasury of the big town and cities. And then Poddar is sometimes mentioned as a person who is supposed to taste the metal, who is supposed to certify that metal, the pure quality of the metal. Probably I got a bit confused. Potnis was responsible for income and expenditure, and it was Poddar who is supposed to be a metal responsible for the metal testing. Well, now apart from that, we do get information about the Karkhanas. Karkhanas were as good as the different departments. For example, and those departments were called Karkhanas. Karkhanas, the word we use nowadays, Karkhanas is generally referred to as a place where something is manufactured. But it was not the case during those days. You see, the word goes on changing. The meaning of the word goes on changing over a period of time. For example, among the Karkhanas, there was a Karkhana called Khajana. Now, Khajana, definitely they will not manufacture the Khajana, but they will keep the cash safe. So that is called Khajana. Are you understanding this department? Well, then there was Jawahir Khana, jewel store where the jewels will be kept. Then there was Ambar Khana called granary. So there was number of Karkhanas, 18 Karkhanas I have written here. Like there will be a Sarbat Khana responsible for the medicine. There will be a Tof Khana where artillery is kept. You everybody understand the meaning of artillery? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Huh?
Weapons. Weapons for
Artillery,
wars.
artillery is fire weapon. Artillery, like sword, will not come in under artillery. Artillery is like
The
cannon and the fireball.
fire, one with firepower.
One with firepower. That's very right. Like gun will come under artillery. Well, so all these fire weapons are kept in Tof Khana. Then Daftar Khana is a record department. Jamadar Khana is a public treasury. Then Jirat Khana is a corn department, or whether it was an armory where the weapons are kept, like guns are kept, or whether it was a corn department, there is a different opinion. Again, we know that there is a matter of interpretation because one words can have multiple meaning. Then Mudbak Khana was kitchen, Ustar Khana was camel and trapping, the things that made the camel useful, the tying of a rope and all that is killed in Ustar, come under the category under the Karkhana of Ustar Khana. Then Talim Khana is gymnasium where the soldiers will go and exercise. Pil Khana is elephant shed where the elephants are kept. Faras Khana is carpet, tent, and other accessories. Uh, Abdar Khana is drinks where drinks are the person responsible for drink. His work will come under Abdar Khana. Then Shikar Khana is related to hunting. Then Daru Khana is again this Tob Khana and Daru Khana, they are related. Daru Khana is a magazine where again the it is called magazine is a place where generally bombs and all they are stored. So during those days those cannon balls which can be fired, they might have been used to they might have been stored there under Daru Khana, which is called magazine. And then Shahat Khana is conservancy department. All other thing like the cleaning and all that will come under the Shahat Khana, supply of water, etc. So these are the 18 karkhanas, and then apart from that, we also come across the word Mahal. Now, Mahal is a word which is used having a two meaning. For example, Mahal was also a division under the Suba. What is Suba? We will discuss later on. But it was a division under the Suba, as well as sometimes the Mahal is also used for the department. For example, there are 12 Mahals which are mentioned. In the historical record. So, again, it's very similar to Karkhana. So there seems to be a bit of overlapping and there seems to be a bit of uncertainties because we don't get a lot of information about, sources about the administration of Shivaji's period. So Pote was treasury, Saudagir was merchandise, Palki, Planki, you can understand. Koti was warehouse, then Imarat was building person who is supposed to look after the building, then chariots, then paga, then seri. So it's all written. So I'm just going up fast. Then Daruni is Janana, where the royal ladies used to stay. That department was separate. Then Tangsal is mint, where the coins are kept. Then Sabina is guard. So this Mahal, they were generally related to the personal life of the king. So you see, for example, Daruni Zanana, that means the royal ladies, king's wives and his mothers and sister and daughter, where they are staying is that is a department of Daruni. So it was mostly related to the king's life and doesn't have much concern with the administration. Now, in the whole administrative structure, as I have already told you in the beginning, it was not a rigid, sacrosanct constitution which cannot be disturbed. Everything depended on the king. King was the pivot of the administration. He was all powerful, and what prevented him from misusing power? It is only sense of duty. He had a certain sense of duty that made him to understand his limitation, that he should not misuse his power. And it's because of that it was possible for Sambhaji to do away with the ministers who did not support him and put all his power or put all the power of Council of Ministers in the hands of Kavi Kalash. And then later on we see that as there was no capable person, no capable king after Shahu in the lineage of Shivaji, and that is the reason the whole power has passed into the hands of the Peshwa. And Peshwa, who was one among the Council of Ministers, became supreme during the latter phase. And Fadnvis, who was not a very important person, became very important during the Peshwa's period. Now, this is all about the Ashtapradhan, its functioning and the uncertainties, the changing structure of Ashtapradhan we have seen from Shivaji's time to the Rajaram's times and later on during Shahu's time. Of course, Shahu's period and all will come later. But nevertheless, the point that I wanted to communicate to you is that Ashtapradhan Mandal was put in the place. Shivaji tried to put in the place, but it did not function very well. There was a disruption. There was because of the uncertain time and because of the war. Well, now, Shivaji's the division of the kingdom that we will talk about now. I have already referred that there used to be two territories in the administration. One was Swarajya, which was directly controlled by Shivaji, and one was Mughlai, that is the area on which Marathas used to attack and claim tax called Khandani. The tax is also called Chauth and Sardeshmukhi because the Marathas, they claim themselves to be Sardeshmukh of the southern part of India. Sardeshmukh means a principal revenue collector, and they stated that this is our area and the Mughal should give us right to take the tax. And in fact, this right to take tax was given to them much later in 1713 during when Chhatrapati Shivaji was no more, and the Peshwas they brought this sanad, this right to collect the revenues. Well, so Swarajya, I already told you Mughlai from where the Marathas took Khandani, and this Swarajya, according to Chitnis Bakar, was divided into the 14 prants, 14 provinces. Out of that, some prants, some provinces I have written, and this each prant, each province was headed by a person called Subedar. And the Pune in and surrounding area, that was Jagir that Shivaji has received from his father Shahaji. Then there was Mawar Prant, Mawar, Saswad, Junar, all these they were coming in this province and they were having 18 forts. So all these provinces were having forts, and the forts played a very important role because the treasury of that area was kept in that fort. The soldiers protecting that area was kept in that fort, and that is the reason the provinces are mentioned along with the number of forts. Then third province was Vai, Satara, Karad, western part of Satana region having 15 forts. Then Panna region 13 forts. South Konkan, that is present Ratnagiri district. Then North Konkan is present day Thane having 12 forts. Then Baglan Trembak, that is called present day it is called Nashik district, that is having 12 forts. Then Vangad, Dharwad district, Bednur, Kolar, Srirangapattam, that is the Mysore region, which is having 18 forts. Then newly acquired part on the Krishna River on Karnataka was also having 18 forts. So this 9 and 10, that was a recent conquest of Shivaji after 1674, after his coronation. And Tanjavur, of course, certain portion of Tanjavur kingdom was taken over by Shivaji from his brother, and those that was having 6 forts. So all these regions were called Suba Prant, and they were headed by Subedar, and he is also called Amaldar. Again, there seems to be a bit of overlapping, but whatever you can understand, if the question comes, you write. Don't try to look for certainties and get confused. Uncertainties is there. Understand the uncertainties and write likewise. So you can say that, for example, Subedar, he was sometimes head of the province is also referred as Amaldar. And he was assisted by the different officers like Muzumdar. You see, the Muzumdar word will come repeatedly. There was a Muzumdar among the Ashtapradhan Mandal, and now there is a Muzumdar who is also here to assist Subedar. So Muzumdar is a designation which indicates the accounting business. All right. Muzumdar is there in Bengali also. Bhattacharya, am I right? Yes. Vishwajit, is he there? Are you getting
Yes,
me?
sir.
Well,
Yes,
Muzumdar.
sir. Muzumdar is the one of I have many Muzumdars in Nagpur also.
Yes. Well, okay. Muzumdar, then there. So this Subedar will be assisted by Muzumdar. Chitnis, again, later writer, we have Chhatrapati Chitnis as well, and then we have Chitnis for Subedar. So Chitnis is kind of assistant who write later. Then Dafatdar, who will we keep the record, then Fadnis we have, then Subnis, Potnis. So all those posts we find repetition at the central level, then at the district level, at the state level as well. And now this, but this for to the staff of the Subedar, like Muzumdar and Chitnis and Fadnis, they all were appointed by the central authority, because if Subedar have his own staff, probably he will be prone, he will be encouraged to rebel against the central authority. Now Subedar is also called Sir Karkun. Now nowadays the word Karkun, have you heard the word Karkun? Yes. Hello, are you there, guys?
Yes, sir.
Well, have you heard the word Karkun?
Sir, what? Please repeat.
Karkun, Karkun.
No, sir. That's a new word for me.
Well, okay. See, the Karkun is a word, it is in Marathi and it is used for clerk. Clerks are called Karkun. But during those days, Karkun were officers. Karkun was the word symbolizes as officers. And the Subedar is also called Sir Karkun. That means the chief officer of a province. So it was a very important post. And this Subha was further divided into Mahal. Mahal, I have already told you earlier, that was a word which is also used to denote a department. Now Mahal also used as a kind of small area of the Subha, and the income from each mahal generally used to be 0.75 to 1.25 lakh. And subedar, the head of the subha, was generally given a salary of around 400 huns per annum. In a year, 400 was a kind of currency during Shivaji's time, and that roughly used to come of 100 rupees per month during those days. And now, again, I'm telling you the bit of confusion about the designation. Subedar is referred to as Amaldar, but now Amaldar is also a designation used for the revenue collection at the different level. So, there is a bit of confusion about the designation and the responsibilities and duties assigned to that designation. Well, we'll talk about revenue administration now, but you understood this thing. See, the division of the empire into the subhas, there were 14 subhas mentioned by Chitnis Bakar, and some of them I have mentioned. And then the Subedar was a head, and the Subedar was assisted by the different staff like Muzumdar, and those were appointed by the central authority. His salary you should be knowing, and there was a bit of confusion in the designation and responsibility. That also you can write while writing your answers. Up to here, is it clear to you, or up to here, do you have any doubt? Otherwise, we will go to the bit of revenue administration. Yes.
Sir, it's clear.
Okay, fine. Well, now Shivaji, when he started acquiring the territory, he tried to reorganize the revenue administration. The Maratha territory, from where Shivaji started his experiment of Swaraj, was under the control of Nizam Shahi for a very long period, and then it was taken over by Bijapur. So these traces of the administrative structure of Nizam Shahi and Bijapur, it was already there. They tried to run the administration according to their tradition, or according to the what suited them. And then later on, the area of Maharashtra, some portion of it was also acquired by Mughal. Like during the Treaty of Purandar, Shivaji was forced to give away a lot of area to Mughal along with the forts. So we see this, and then their Mughal have tried to put their own administrative structure into the place. So this Maratha area on which Shivaji and his descendant ruled had inherited the tradition of the three different administrative structure. Not three, four in fact. Fourth I will tell you: Nizam Shahi, Bijapur, Mughal, and as well as Vijayanagara. See, the Vijayanagara was a kingdom much before Shivaji, almost 200 years before Shivaji, and that Vijayanagara empire was, it ended in 1565. But that Vijayanagara empire, though central authority has vanished, the Vijayanagara empire did not vanish altogether. But the local, local subedar of that Vijayanagara. Empire, they became an independent ruler called Palegar. Sometimes independent, sometimes semi-independent. They used to accept the sovereignty of the Bijapur and Bijapur king, and they used to survive. They used to look after the administration of their small territory, relatively small territory. So this Vijayanagara administrative structure also Shivaji has came into contact, especially during his conquest of the southern part of India, a certain portion of the southern part of India, like Zinji. Well, so this revenue administration of this different tradition that Shivaji was exposed to, and then he tried to financially have a kind of unified administrative structure in all the territory under his control. Because of this constant warfare between Nizam Shahi and Bijapur and Mughal and Maratha, the people of that region, they suffered a lot. And Shivaji had tried his best that the people staying in the area under his control should not be facing the difficulties. Now, one very important legacy that Shivaji has tried to revive, or Shivaji has copied a lot of things, that is the revenue system of Malik Ambar. The Malik Ambar was Abyssinian general of Nizam Shah. Nizam Shah. Do you remember now who were these Abyssinian? Yes?
No, sir.
Well, Abyssinian were also called Habshi. I told you about Siddhis. So these people, they believed to have came to India from Abyssinia. They were South African African slave. They came first as a slave, and then they were employed as bodyguard. Then they form a kind of community in India, and they used to serve under the different king. For example, Siddhis of Zanzira, they were Abyssinian. Similarly, there were large number of Abyssinian who were called Hafshis. They used to be having a black complexion, and they also called Shamal for their complexion in the Maratha correspondence. So these Abyssinian, they played a very important role in the history, and one of the Abyssinian general of Nizam Shah was Malik Ambar, and he was very capable. He fought to protect Nizam Shah. He fought against Bijapur and Mughal, and he took the help of the Marathas. Chhatrapati Shivaji's father, Shahaji, he fought along with Malik Ambar against Mughal and Bijapur in the Battle of Bhatwadi, that is 1624, very important battle, when this Nizam Shahi noble Malik Ambar, he defeated the combined army of Bijapur and Mughal, one of the most illustrious war that was fought by Malik Ambar. Well, so Malik Ambar, apart from a great warrior, he was a great administrator as well. He was Wazir of Nizam Shah, and he put into the place the revenue administration of the area. Khadki, which is called Aurangabad now, is believed to have developed by this person Malik Ambar, who brought water to Khadki, and then later on that was became Aurangabad. Well, a very interesting character in the history of southern India. And this Malik Ambar's revenue administration, Shivaji has tried to revive with the help of his illustrious Chitnis, Annaji Datto. And then he tried to have a system where the land is measured. Land is measured now. There is nothing new. But during those days, when there was a land was in abundance and population was much on the lesser side, to ascertain the revenue, how much land we have, different people have tried to experiment. Illustrious king generally done that. For example, in Delhi, Sher Shah Suri has done that. Then Akbar has done that. And in Maharashtra, Malik Ambar, very important noble, has done that. And Shivaji has also tried to do that. So, Shivaji has made a standard measurement called Kathi. And the Kathi, in literary translation of Kathi, is stick. Kathi is a Marathi word, And this cut, he has made a standard. For example, if you have to take the measurement, you have to measure agriculture land with the help of a stick. The stick has to be of some standard size, otherwise I will take certain stick and somebody else will take certain stick, and there will be a mismatch in the administration, in the measurement. For example, I will say that my agriculture land is having a length of, let us say, 100 stick, and somebody will say that it is 110 or 102. So to avoid this kind of confusion, one standard kati that was put into the practice, having a particular length, and that is to be used for measuring the agricultural land. And this kati, the measuring rod, will have a length of 5 cubits and 5 fist. 5 fist and then 5 cubit. 1 cubit is equal to 45.72 centimeter. So that was a way, was standard measurement. The intention, what I'm trying to communicate to you, is that Shivaji has made an attempt to standardize the measurement of the agriculture land and have a record of it. So this 20 kathi a square, it made 1 bigha land, and 120 bigha made 1 chawar. So in that way the land was measured and the record was kept. Shivaji, he made survey of the land, then he made assessment of the rent that will be coming from those land, and that assessment that is payable by the cultivator. He made a survey at the different time. For example, very first survey that was done in Pune and surrounding area was done under the guidance of Dadoji Kondev. When Shivaji came to look after the Jagir of his father, Dadoji Kondev came there as an elderly guide, and he was a very good administrator. So Dadaji Kondev, he made the first survey of Pune and surrounding area, and then later on Moropanta Pingale, the Peshwa, under the leadership of Moropanta Pingale, under the guidance of Moropanta Pingale, the measurement of land was done, survey of the land was done, and later on it was done under Annaji Datto. So this Annaji Datto survey, his measurement of land and the record, it was kept in practice for a very long period during Peshwa's time as well. So when Britishers, they took over from the Peshwas in 1818, they found that Annaji Datto's system is still working, especially in the Konkan region. Well, now under Shivaji, to ascertain the revenue administration, the land was classified to according to their fertility, their produce, how much the land will be producing in the season. That was a certain government share was fixed, and then a collection of that revenue either in kind or in money, that was done. Abolition of the intermediaries. This was one of the important feature of Shivaji's revenue administration. Traditionally, at this point, I am repeating time and again, the Deshmukhs and Watandar, they used to be the traditional revenue collector who will collect the revenue from the peasant and deposit the certain part of it in the central treasury and keep a certain part of it as their share. And this system was susceptible to the lot of exploitation of the peasant. And similarly, this Deshmukh and the revenue collector, they will strengthen themselves at the cost of the state, and seeing an opportunity will revolt against the state. Shivaji tried to abolish these intermediaries, and then he appointed government servants to collect the revenue. No hereditary tax collector. Shivaji was against the hereditary tax collector like Deshmukh. But of course, system was in a place for centuries together, and Shivaji obviously could not just do away with it with sweep of a pen. It took him certain time, and of course, this Watandari, it could not be abolished, because immediately after Shivaji, immediately after Sambhaji, especially, there was a revival of the Watandari, because Rajaram wanted the Marathas should come back to him. Well, but nevertheless, this was one of the important feature of Shivaji's administration, that he tried to abolish the intermediaries between the peasant and the state. Now, out of the production of the agriculture, 2/5 was claimed by the state and 3/5 was with the farmer. And then, apart from that, in the to increase the revenue, these two principles were also followed. That is Tagai and Istawa. So, what is this Tagai and Istawa? I'll tell you now. So this Tagai and Istawa, those were the principle. These are the Persian name, and those were the followed. These principles were followed to bring new land under cultivation. So under this Tagai, new cultivators were given cattle and seeds, and under Istawa principle, the loan was advanced to them. and this money spent by the state, money spent by the government on cattle and seed, as well as directly giving the loan, those were not recovered immediately in the next season, because in the next season if you try to recover, probably the farmer will not be in a position to pay back, because agriculture you need to invest money in the cattle, invest money in the seed, invest money in the improvement of the land, and then it may take a lot of time for your money to recover. And government understood this, and this money that was given to the farmer, as well as the cost of the cattle and the seed, that was recovered over a period of time. So that is called Tagai and Istawa principle. Is it clear to you? Have you understood this principle? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Huh.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So, then, while the whole agricultural land of the village was assessed, and the revenue was fixed, and while assessing this revenue, the wasteland is there in the village, that will be excluded. And when the wasteland was brought under cultivation first time under the system of Tagai and Istawa, that were taxed moderately. If you put lot of tax on the in the first year itself, that will discourage the farmer. So there was an attempt to increase the revenue of the state by bringing the wasteland under cultivation. So, Shivaji was a kind of leader of peasantry against the big landlord, because the big landlord and zamindar, they were the kind of exploitator of the peasant. They will impose heavy taxes, they will claim hereditary right, they will take certain things from the agricultural land of the peasant. But Shivaji was a person who has tried to do away with these intermediaries, and in a way, he is perceived as king of the peasant. Now, at the same time, in the beginning, I told you about these two type of territory, that is Swarajya and Mughlai. But the moment the area comes directly under the control of Shivaji, Shivaji has tried to protect the peasant and tried to protect the people. Revenue collectors were appointed, and the hereditary collection was done away with. And military people, generally they will have nothing to do with the revenue collection. Generally they are being kept separately, because if you give the authority of collection of the revenue to the military person, there is a likelihood of the harassment of the peasant. Similarly, there was a text, there was a document called Kabuliyat. Kabuliyat is, it is a kind of agreement signed between the cultivator and the state. So assessment of the agricultural land was made, and after the assessment, an agreement was signed between the state as well as by the cultivator, that you are having this much of land, and after cultivation of this much of land, you will pay this much of the revenue. That is called Kabuliyat. Well, now, there was a tax called Khandani. Khandani was a tax which Shivaji's people used to collect from the territory outside the Swarajya, Mughlai. And Shivaji took care that when that area becomes a part of Swarajya, it is not subjected to Khandani, because that Khandani is, likely to lead to the harassment of the peasant. Military officers had no role in revenue collection. Land was measured, noted on the name of the cultivator, and the official called Amaldar was appointed to collect the revenue. Amaldar was also made responsible for the maintenance of the law and order, and below Amaldar, Amaldar was the head revenue collector of the province. Below Amaldar, there was a Tarafdar or Talukdar, who was in charge of the small district, and then he is assisted by Havaldar, and then below him, below Tarafdar, there used to be a person called Karkun again. Now, Karkun used to be responsible for the collection of the revenue of 2 to 3 villages. And Sir Karkun is a big officer. Sometimes the head of the Suba is also referred as Sir Karkun. Then there was a person called Mahalkari. He was a revenue collector responsible for the collection of the Mahal. He was held by Havaldar. Havaldar was a police officer. And well, well. Now, this Mahal, generally two or three Mahal combined together, they made a Subha. So, Mahalkari is a person who is responsible for the revenue collection in the Mahal, and Subedar was a head of the province. Two or three Mahal, it combined Subha, or Subha was divided into the number of Mahal, two to three Mahal. This, Shivaji's administrative structure, as I told you, he tried to do away with the hereditary revenue collector, and that is the reason he was not popular among the Deshmukh and Watandar, but he was popular among the farmers as he took care of the farmers' right. So this was a main revenue. Agriculture was a main basis, and I told you about agriculture. How Shivaji made kathi, how he took steps to measure the land, assess the revenue, tried to do away with the intermediaries, and appointed government officials. There was a system of bringing the uncultivated land under cultivation. So you while understanding this, things seems to be a bit chaotic, but try to understand as much as you can. What I'm telling you, if you write that much, that will be more than enough to get you good marks. But don't ensure that you are not missing any point, right point wise. Sometimes the studying of the administrative structure, it becomes a bit boring. It is not as thrilling as when you read war and conquest, but it is important and it will fetch you better marks in administrative. If you write answer on the administration point wise, if you make all the points, probably you will get a better mark. Writing on the military expedition, it becomes a bit cumbersome. It may be interesting to listen, but you cannot measure all the write all the points. But in case of administration, you can write a very better structure answer well. So shall we go ahead and discuss a bit about the other sources of revenue, or it is getting too much for you today? Shall we stop here? Yes.
Sir, we have
No,
10 minutes left. Will that be completed in 10 minutes?
Yeah, I hope so. We can talk about other sources of revenue and then stop, right?
Chalega, sir.
Okay. So, apart from that main agriculture revenue, there were other sources of revenue. For example, the ports, seaports, Shivaji's kingdom has a seaport, and the seaports used to be very important source of revenue because the foreign merchants used to come with their goods to the seaports. So, Shivaji had seaports at Kallan, Bhivandi, Chaul, Dabol, and Ratnagiri. So, all these foreign goods, they will enter and leave these ports, and they had to pay the custom duty of 2.5%. But European people who used to come to this area, they have written that these people, the Marathas, they demand a lot of bribe. They are very corrupt people. Well, whatever the case might be, Shivaji alone cannot change the character. It takes a lot of time for India is still a very corrupt country. People don't understand that by doing corruption, we are harming our own nation. We are not allowing the good people to come forward. We are making the life miserable for the poor people. Well, unfortunately, well. Then seizing of the enemy vessel and ransom. Sometimes the enemy vessel which was going through the sea, Marathas used to seize them and then demand the ransom. The enemy has to pay certain amount of money, then only that vessel will be released. So this was also interestingly one of the source of revenue. It was almost like a piracy, but that was accepted during those days. And nowadays, of course, we will not do that. We will not seize something of Pakistan of our enemy country and say that Pakistan has to pay us so much of money, and we will leave. After that only we release the ship, and we cannot count that money given by Pakistan as a revenue. Can we do that now? There will be an international uproar. But during those days, medieval period, it was a life of anarchy and life of uncertainty. And person like Shivaji alone probably cannot change the whole system. It takes a lot of time. Well, then there was a tax called Rahadari and Zakat. So this was a transit duty on goods and animal passing from one place to another place. Uh, do I need to explain this Rahadari and Zakat? It was a transit duty when the animals and goods, when they were taken from one place to another place, when they cross the border of the district, they have to pay the tax. Then there was judicial fee. The when the people go to the judiciary with their complaint. And the judge and all the witness will be caught, whole system will work, and the person who win the case, he has to pay the tax called harki, and the person who lose the case, he has to also pay the tax gunegari. So these both used to be source of revenue for the government. Then hidden treasure. If the treasures are found in the house of somebody, the king claimed that that hidden treasure are rightfully belongs to the king. It doesn't belong to the person who found it. Similarly, according to the English record, during the Maratha period, salt trading was a monopoly of state. While studying about the naval administration, we will also learn that Shivaji had ships who used to do the trading with the salt. So salt essential for everybody, and but it was only state who can trade the salt. So that was also revenue generating activities of the state. Uh, Shivaji also had ships, and he carried out his business with countries like Persia. That is recorded in the English record. Then Watandar, when the one Watandar used to succeed another, for example, a Watandar dies and his son succeeds him, then he has to pay succession fee to the state. That was also source of revenue. And then Watan and Inam, if Watandar became disloyal, Shivaji used to forfeit that watan, and that was also source of revenue. Inam kingdom was given as Inam, and for some reason that was taken back. That is again a revenue generating activities. Then Shivaji had mint. He had mint at Raigad, and Sabasad Bakar mentions that there were 32 different kind of coin, and among the gold coin were Shivrai Hon, Gambas, Mohor, Putris, Padshah Hon, Devrai Hon, Ramchandra Rai Hon. So, these are the different kind of coins manufactured by Shivaji, and this mint was also a source of revenue. Sometimes Saukar also they minted coins, but they have to pay license tax to the state. So that was another source of revenue. But in case of coin, apart from these coins made by Shivaji, there used to be Mughal coin and other coins of other kingdom that were also in circulation in the Maratha kingdom. Then another interesting thing is that plundering the enemy territory. I told you about the Mughlai territory, and Maratha army, they used to go attack those area, and the administrator, the Mughal administrator of that area, was forced to pay khandani. It is also called chauth, that is one fourth of the income, and above that there was a sardeshmukhi, that is 1/10 of the total income. So this was also considered as an important source of income. But there are justification for that, because Shivaji has to maintain the huge army, and the territory over which Shivaji ruled was a mountainous region. It was not a very fertile region like Ganga, Yamuna, Doab. So from where the money will come to sustain such a huge army? So profiting from plundering of the enemy territory, Shivaji was left with no option. That is what Shivaji tries to justify when he attacks Surat. He tells to the people of Surat that I am helpless because it is your king who has imposed war on me, and I have to fight the war, so the finance should come from your king. So that was a kind of clever argument, but nevertheless profit from plundering of the enemy territory was one of the source of revenue. And then this is the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, it will need a certain bit of discussion. So we'll leave it for the next class. We'll stop here for today. I told you about the agriculture revenue system. Then I told you about, before that, I told you about the division of the territory. First two category, Swaraj and Mughlai. And Swaraj divided into the 14 provinces, as Chitnis Bakhar tells us. Out of that, I told you about certain provinces. Then I told you about different officers like Muzumdar and Amaldar and so on and so forth. And then I told you about the revenue. Shivaji has tried to restructure, reorganize the revenue administration. He Kathi, Malik Amber's tradition, he copied certain things from that. And apart from that, there were certain other sources of revenue apart from agriculture, like attacking the enemy territory. So in that category, that is generating of the revenue from the enemy territory, comes Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. This Chauth and Sardeshmukhi is a very important source of revenue. It remained a very important source of revenue throughout Maratha history till during the latter phase, also during Peshwa's period. So we will be discussing that in the next class. Just a minute. I will stop sharing, and then I will stop recording as well.